America couldn't let this black success continue. They built banks, hospitals, theaters, and a school system, all from scratch, in a land that hated them. They proved black excellence wasn't a dream, it was a reality. So America burned it to the ground, and then erased it from history for nearly 100 years. To understand Tulsa, you must understand what black Americans were surviving in the decades before it. The Civil War ended in 1865, slavery was abolished, but Jim Crow replaced it. A nationwide system of laws and violence designed to ensure black Americans would never accumulate power, wealth, or dignity. They were denied bank loans, denied property rights, denied every mechanism of wealth building that America offered everyone else. But in the rugged plains of northeastern Oklahoma, formerly designated as Indian Territory, something extraordinary was quietly taking shape. Others followed with their own visions. J.B. Stratford, born into slavery in Kentucky, later a lawyer and activist, built a 55-room luxury hotel bearing his name, the largest black-owned hotel in the country. He believed black people had a better chance if they pooled their resources together. Simon Berry created a transportation network that included car rides, a bus line, and chartered private planes to fly oil barons into Tulsa. The Williams family built the 750-seat Dreamland Theater. Andrew Smitherman founded the Tulsa Star, a newspaper that became the moral voice of the community. By 1921, Greenwood comprised 191 businesses. It was home to a library, 2 schools, a hospital, and 2 newspapers. The district had 15 doctors, dentists, realtors, and lawyers. It had its own post office, savings bank, bus service, and a school system that gave black children a world-class education. In just 15 years, from a single grocery store, one man's vision had become a civilization. Now let's talk about the numbers, because the numbers are what made Greenwood not just impressive, but threatening. It is estimated that every dollar spent in the Greenwood district circulated within the neighborhood at least 36 times before leaving, according to historians. In the broader American economy, a dollar changed hands 2 or 3 times. In Greenwood, black Tulsans had built an economic ecosystem so complete that money stayed, worked, grew, and multiplied within their own walls. They weren't just surviving segregation, they were weaponizing it. Because white Tulsa refused to serve black customers, black Tulsans spent with each other. Because white banks refused black borrowers, they built their own. Because white theaters barred black audiences, they built the Dreamland. Every wall erected to confine them became a foundation to build upon. By 1921, Gurley owned more than 100 properties in Greenwood, with an estimated net worth between $500,000 and $1 million. Between $7 and $14 million in today's dollars. When Booker T. Washington visited in 1905, he was so astonished by what he found that he gave it a name history would never forget. He called it Negro Wall Street, later refined to what we know it as Black Wall Street. But here is the part that explains everything that came next. Many white residents felt intimidated by the prosperity of Black Wall Street. There were reports of hateful letters sent to prominent business leaders demanding they stop overstepping their boundaries into white Tulsa. Whites of the era equated black improvements in wages and working conditions as communistic threats. They were resentful that black Americans no longer passively accepted second-class citizenship. Black Wall Street was not just economic achievement. It was a declaration. We do not need your approval. We built something better. And that defiance was something America could not tolerate. Memorial Day, May 30th, 1921. A 19-year-old black shoeshiner named Dick Rowland finished his shift and walked to the only elevator in the nearby Drexel building, the only route to the one restroom black workers were permitted to use in that area. The elevator operator was Sarah Page, a 17-year-old white woman. The most common account is that Rowland accidentally stepped on Page's foot, throwing her off balance. When he reached out to catch her, she screamed. That was it. That was the entirety of the incident. But the next morning, the Tulsa Tribune ran a headline that wasn't journalism. It was an execution order. Nab Negro for attacking girl in elevator. Eyewitnesses reported the evening editorial went further, allegedly headlined, "To Lynch Negro Tonight." By 7:30 p.m., hundreds of whites had gathered outside the courthouse, demanding authorities hand over Dick Rowland. The sheriff refused. News reached Greenwood, and the men of Greenwood did not hide. A group of approximately 25 armed black men, many of them World War I veterans, went to the courthouse to offer themselves as protection for Rowland. These were men who had bled for America in Europe, men who had been promised their sacrifice would earn them dignity at home. They were met by a white mob that had swelled to over 300. Shots were fired, and what followed would become the most suppressed atrocity in American history. What happened next was not a riot. A riot is chaotic and spontaneous. What happened in Tulsa on the night of May 31st and into June 1st, 1921, was an organized, military-style assault on a civilian population. Biplanes dropped fiery turpentine bombs from the night skies onto rooftops. The first aerial bombing of an American city in history. Pause on that fact. The first time an American city was bombed from the air, it was not by a foreign enemy. It was by white Americans bombing black Americans in Tulsa, Oklahoma. A mob of thousands surged through black homes, taking everything from dining room furniture to piggy banks. Arsonists reportedly waited for white women to fill bags with looted goods before setting homes ablaze. Tulsa police officers were identified by eyewitnesses as shooting residents, setting fires and stealing. The institution sworn to protect the people was participating in their massacre. Over 6,000 black Tulsans were held at the convention hall and fairgrounds at gunpoint. Not the attackers, the victims. When the smoke cleared after 18 hours, more than 1,400 homes and businesses were burned. Nearly 10,000 people were left homeless. The official death toll recorded 36. Historians now believe as many as 300 people were killed. The Red Cross arrived the next day. Where the death count should have appeared in their report, they wrote, "Figures are omitted. No one knows." And Dick Rowland? His charges were dismissed. They had been highly suspect from the start. Sarah Page never pressed them. Rowland quietly left Tulsa and vanished from the public record. The lie that burned a civilization was never prosecuted. Here is where the story becomes not just tragic, but sinister. The Tulsa Tribune removed its May 31st front page story from its bound volumes. Police and state militia archives about the massacre disappeared. Not misplaced, not damaged, removed. No public memorials, no official ceremonies, no trials, no convictions, no government reparations. For decades, there was a deliberate effort to cover the massacre up. Oklahoma did not require schools to teach about it until 2002. It wasn't formally added to the statewide curriculum until 2020, 99 years after it happened. Most Americans first learned about Black Wall Street not from a history class, not from a textbook, not from a museum, but from an HBO drama. When Watchmen aired in 2019 with a recreation of the massacre, many viewers reported they initially believed they were watching fictional events. That is the measure of how completely this was buried. Scientists and historians later uncovered evidence of victims buried in unmarked mass graves, people whose deaths were never recorded, whose families received no acknowledgement, whose names the state of Oklahoma never bothered to learn. In 2002, a private religious charity paid survivors a total of $28,000, a little over $200 each, from private donations. Not from the government, not from Tulsa, from private charity. $200 for losing everything. That is not oversight. That is a policy of erasure.